Alright guys, Kremp again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Kenny has given his perspective on the most talented roster that he's ever been a part of all the illustrious teams that he's competed and won with over the last few years, which is his number one, but also some speculation on what exactly Atlanta FaZe are looking to announce tonight. Probably not a roster change, but potentially some other change within that team. Very much enjoying your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new. As always, I would greatly appreciate it. Unlucky Beans, I don't know. I voted for Thieves. What can I say? Who wins the 100-meter race? Although Ben does say in the replies here he thinks maybe he would have TJ's number. I would like to see it, I'm not gonna lie, although Tej does say entire roster would get dusted in 100 meters. We shall see on that one, or maybe we won't. I don't know. It's gonna be hot out there in ReeaL, Saudi Arabia. I don't think they're gonna be doing any 100-meter dashes like we're seeing right now in Paris. But let's talk about this whole FaZe thing, because there's been a bit of speculation what they're gonna do this off-season. Now, as it stands, a roster change is, well, it's possible, but it's like not possible before the World Cup, because literally the day after Champs ended, that was the roster lock for the World Cup. So you can't change your roster. You've got to take the same team there, unless you were a team that didn't make Champs, in which case they had enough time to make a change going into the Esports World Cup. But the top teams didn't, so, you know, even if FaZe are pretty adamant they're going to make a move, what are they going to do? And also for some of these top teams, I'm pretty sure their scrims are going to start again today, maybe even tomorrow, because often Monday is the day that some teams take off. But I'm pretty sure some teams such as OpTic, I don't know about FaZe, but I'm pretty sure OpTic are getting back into practice today. And, well, we'll see if they turn the streams on or not, because Kenny was saying, well, he would like to have the streams on just for a couple of days. But to be honest, right, the players are probably going to fly out because the championship in Saudi Arabia starts on this upcoming Thursday. I'm sure that Wednesday is going to be like a media style day or whatever. So they've got to be there at least by Tuesday. And if you leave on, let's say, Monday, then you'll probably get there, certainly from the US, very late on Tuesday, which maybe isn't ideal. So I think a lot of the pros are going to probably fly Sunday or Monday. So I would say that they have maybe 5 days of practice left. Basically, these teams, before they go to the World Cup. And for some of their teams, this is literally all the practice they are going to get because, you know, OpTic and these other teams, we think the top teams have taken a fair bit of time off. Whatever you think about that, the same quite possibly applies to the FaZe boys, and they are going to have the same roster for the World Cup, but potentially not exactly quite the same situation because today at 5 PM Eastern time, they're dropping a video on the FaZe YouTube channel, which is, well, it's not even scheduled as it stands. I don't really know what it's going to be about. It's not like there's, you know, a thumbnail or a title or whatever that we can look at here. So, you know, is this just content? I don't know. Is this actually some sort of announcement? That has been the speculation just because, well, here's Simp saying, happy birthday, brother to Accuracy. Now, look, this doesn't really mean anything. I just wanted to point it out because Accuracy has been rumored to be a coach, right, for next season. Now, it's not like they're going to announce, oh, Coach Accuracy, welcome to FaZe, given that he's playing for G2 in a few days' time at the World Cup in Riyadh. Like, that ain't happening, right? But after this off-season, the feeling is that, well, Accuracy will probably get a number of coaching offers, and I just wanted to mention it as a bit of a segue into this whole coaching situation because there has been talk on FaZe. They have undoubtedly underperformed given their strength of their roster over the last few years. They should have achieved so many more championships than they have done. They've won 2 events, FaZe, in the last 3 years. Nothing in Vanguard, Major 2 in Boston in, obviously, Modern Warfare 2 with Slasher, and then Major 2 this year in Miami with Drazah. And, you know, in many ways, Miami was the least glamorous one even to win. So even that wasn't great. So, you know, in terms of people say, oh, OpTic content org and all this stuff, well, OpTic have won more championships now in the last couple of years than FaZe have. So there's something to be said on that. Obviously on playstyles and on Sundays and in grand finals, whatever you want to say about this particular team. We'll talk a bit more about it later today, actually. But there has been talk about Crowder, right, who's kind of been the head coach of their team for some time, but he doesn't work, well, he works remotely, I'm pretty sure from LA, right? I think he's based out of California and the guys are based in Atlanta, and he does a lot of the coaching stuff remotely. There's a question of whether that's a good idea or not because JCap has decided to leave, right? He's going back from Los Angeles Thieves back home where he's originally from, and, you know, he said, look, he'll be interested in working remote coaching opportunities. potentially, what about if Crowder was to come into Los Angeles Thieves and work with them instead, right? Or maybe it could be a swapsy, and maybe FaZe actually don't mind the remote coaching thing. They just don't think that maybe Crowder's the man to take them to the next level or to fix their problems, because, you know, look, FaZe have had many years of this, and it's been a similar thing for the last few years. So, you know, there is an argument to say, could Cap as like a remote coaching role do a job for FaZe? I mean, possibly. Isn't obviously not far away time zone wise from where the FaZe guys would be based anyway. So there might be something in that. That's kind of like the general theory as to what this might involve tonight, is like potentially they might announce, hey, we're going to do stuff with the team, not necessarily the roster, but just like the entire system around the team. Clearly, like if they stick it out completely with the same roster and the same coaching stuff for next year, I think they might be going insane to some degree. Like, I feel like they've got to change something at the bare minimum. It's the same thing that happened with Los Angeles Thieves back in Vanguard. They were trash, not trash, but they were nowhere near as good as they needed to be. And they made a role change, Kenny for Drazah. They brought in Shane as a search and destroy coach. They wanted to win the World Championship, right? And obviously this season for OpTic, I mean, we're pretty sure OpTic brought an accuracy to help them coach during the World Championship run, preparation at least. And I think without that, they probably don't find that extra spark to get over the line. But the talent has always been there with an OpTic team. Kenny did say this the other day. I just wanted to quickly brush past again on the whole streaming scrims thing. If it's going to happen, I think it's going to happen today. And if it doesn't happen today and they don't stream their practice today, it probably ain't happening at all. But it would be great to see for at least a couple of days of OpTic streaming their practice. But who they're going to play against, how they're going to get on, because let's say they play Vegas or they play Ravens or some team like that. Those guys have been streaming now, or well, streaming and also screwing for a good couple of weeks. And OpTic might, might be a little bit rusty, shall we say. But I'm sure they can get there. Of course, they are still going to be effectively the favourites for the World Cup coming up soon. But Kenny was also talking about, of all the teams that he's been on, all the championships that he's won, all the World Championship rings that now he's had on his fingers, talking about which is the most talented team of all.
Which team was your most talented team you've been a part of from a skill standpoint? I think it has to be this one. Because I think when we formed our LET team, like, for one, I'll say nobody thought Drazah was good at the time. But I think if you were to form that team now, it could have an argument for this team, if that makes sense. But I think as of right now, if you were to look at the exact moment the teams were made and then pinpoint pick how good they were then, I think it would definitely have to be this team. Damn, Zach. Y'all understand? That was y'all. That ain't me. He on the team because of me. He was on the team because of me. This guy right here. He's on the team because of me. So it wasn't me. Don't say damn Drazah. Y'all talking about y'all. It's you motherfuckers. Now you said it. That's fine. I said nobody, as in y'all. Let me not say nobody. Everybody except me. Then how about that? We'll fix my mistake.
So do you guys agree with Kenny's perspective that this current OpTic team is the most talented team that he's ever been on? I do think that it is a matter for debate. Certainly, as he says, in terms of fan perception, yeah, no doubt about it. Kenny, Pred, Shotzzy, Dashy, unbelievable stuff. There are other teams, though, in his career that can't be far off or are actually very, very close indeed, and some of which he won with, some of which he didn't. This is just kind of going through Kenny's career, really, with the teams that he was on. This is the Team Caliber roster that he effectively first came into the scene on. He played in Advanced Warfare a bit as well, way back in 2015 on Justice, but, you know, the Theory, Accuracy, Chino team that won back-to-back at the start of that season at New Orleans and at Dallas. You guys can probably just about see that on screen right about here. Yeah, well, let's leave it at this. And as we scroll up, we get some pretty phenomenal teams, actually. Like, this team, Kenny, Pharaoh, Octane, Slasher, and Abel, like, that is actually an absurdly talented team. But as good as Pharaoh was, it just wasn't working out with him on that Black Ops 4 100 Thieves roster in the early days. They made the change, Priestahh comes in, and then they became really good after that and nearly won the World Championship in addition to 2 other events. This team, I think, is right up there, and Abel gets underrated. I think, obviously, Priestahh back then was really good as well. We know how good Octane and Slasher are, so that's certainly up there. Then the OGLA team with Cap and Slasher, Dashy and TJ. Okay, probably not quite as strong as the previous one, and the results certainly weren't quite as strong either. They made a couple of changes. Then there was the, the drama of the Cold War season, really, and eventually they managed to settle in the Vanguard here on this Drazah, Octane, Envoy, Kenny team, which, was also the other candidate, I suppose. But I think that Kenny, probably looking at this, is right, that OpTic are not only considered to be the strongest, like, from a pure talent perspective, but probably just straight up are like that team from a pure talent perspective, because Shotzzy is different gravy, Dashy's back again with Kenny, and then Pred is one of the best players I've seen come into the league over the last several years. And so, look, we talked about this OpTic team being the best since the Dynasty. I think certainly the most talented since the Dynasty as well. And Kenny also probably gets overlooked in his own regard, just how talented he is individually. I think many are actually comparing Kenny to kind of like the Karma of the new generation, or like the Karma of the CDL era, something like that. I think it's an interesting way to look at it, because crucial elements to championship success, but also probably overlooked in terms of his individual skill. But speaking of Kenny, I wanted to talk about the next kind of couple of names in Ronnie's top 25 COD players of all time list, because this is reaching the conclusion. Yesterday we saw Shotzzy at 11. Today we have another couple of updates here. So Jacob comes in at 10. I've always rated Jacob very highly. On my list, he's always been around about the number 6 mark. But I will say nowadays, when you've got guys like Simp and aBeZy and Kenny and others coming through, Jacob probably goes down a couple. I may still have Jacob a bit higher than this. I just think he was like just super impactful on the teams that he was on, even from the really early days. But I will say 10th place for Cap is probably about right. 9 tournament wins, 23 tournaments like grand finals that he made. Obviously a 2-time world champion, made back-to-back Champs Grand Finals in the Jetpack era, and obviously was around a long time before that as well. People also overlook the fact, I think, with JCap, that he was widely considered to be the best player in the game in Black Ops 1. We're talking 2010, 2011. That's when Cap was around, and that's when Cap was arguably at his peak in many respects in terms of how good he was as a player. And, Cap continued that for a number of years, was always a factor, was always on contending teams, and then surprising many when the Jetpack era came around, won champs in 2015, won champs in 2016, and then made the grand finals in 2017 again with an Envy team. But unfortunately for Cap, he just had a bit of a stinker tournament really for Envy at the 2017 World Championship, but probably no one was going to get past OpTic at that particular event. 9th place, though, goes to aBeZy, and this is when there's been quite a lot of debate, really, on whether this is fair or not. Because, look, I mean, everyone can go through and find out who are going to be your top 8 from this point. It's going to be, obviously, the classic top 4, the Kremp, Scump, Karma, Clayster, Formal, in whatever order you're going to put them in. Eggs, of course, has to be there as well. Then you've got Simp, aBeZy, and Kenny. That's basically going to be your top 9, I would say, and you can put that in whatever order that you want to put it in. But obviously, aBeZy being 9th means that Kenny is 8th or better, right, as it stands. We've not seen Kenny here yet, and even Ronnie confirmed in the replies, like, yeah, Kenny is on here, like, he's not 26th, he is on here, and he's above aBeZy. So the question is whether this is, like, fair or not fair, right, because aBeZy is 10 tournament wins, been around for quite a while now, and unbelievably talented player. In my opinion, I agree with this assessment. I think that Kenny, in my opinion, has accomplished more than aBeZy has. But I think you can look at it a couple of ways, just because aBeZy and Simp have very similar careers. Now, aBeZy's numbers aren't as good in terms of average placing and other things, mainly because he played 1 extra year than Simp did. aBeZy was around in World War II, he played on Enigma 6, and that team just wasn't very good. Their average placings were pretty terrible, and the year after, of course, things changed, and aBeZy immediately with Simp started to dominate, and since Simp has come around, aBeZy and Simp have pretty much been 1A, 1B. Sometimes it's been aBeZy who's been 1A, sometimes it's been Simp who's been 1A. Like, let's say in Cold War, there's still a big debate on who was the better player that year between aBeZy and Simp. Vanguard, it was quite clearly Simp. MW2, you could argue aBeZy, you could argue Simp. I might well argue aBeZy in that game was better maybe, and then this most recent game, probably Simp is better. So, but in terms of, they've teamed together the whole time. So they've always had each other pretty much, and they've been in the same grand finals, like their results are kind of the same. And in terms of like pure ability and what they do for the team, it's been pretty similar as well. So you can argue that if aBeZy's 9th, then maybe Simp should be 8th or something. So, you know, is Kenny going to be 8th? Is Kenny going to be 7th? Like, where's Kenny going to slot in? In my opinion, like, I do value the fact that Kenny has played with multiple different teams, multiple different compositions, and he's won basically on every occasion with all of those teams, right? Every single year that's been a full LAN year, Kenny has won an event. So we'll see where Ronnie actually decides to put Kenny when his list kind of comes to its conclusion. But I think that I personally think that Kenny's career is more impressive than aBeZy's career is as it stands. And, you know, two-time world champ, etc., etc., but done in, you know, different teams, which I think is a bit more impressive. The question, I guess, for me is Kenny's career more impressive than Simp's career? Because, you know, that might be another debate. And intrigued to your thoughts, as always, in the comment section below. So very much intrigued to your thoughts down there. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.